I have no idea what God is. Yet I have an experience that God is. There is something very real about this presence called God. It's kind of like asking a human being to explain what God is similar to asking a fish to explain the water in which the fish swims.
God is a superposition of all the spirit from all things.
You are a God in the making. The only way that I will ever be great to myself is not what I do to my body, but what I do to my mind. They have never sinned, wronged, yes, but that's their adversity. That's why they're here. To wrong, to learn, search, and use the wisdom of that to create yet greater dreams.
There's nobody keeping records up there. The records are here, and I'm going to have to deal with them. So anyone who's setting out on the path of enlightenment will be absolutely impeccable in everything that they do. Is it because of fear of damnation? No. Or of the punishment of God, or because I have sinned and haven't got forgiveness? No, no, no. I mean, these are all excuses that keeps us away from the real problem. The really enlightened person will see every action has a reaction with which I must deal. And if I'm wise, I'm not going to do stuff that will cause me to have to face it and resolve it and balance it in my soul later. That's the real criterion.
Knowledge allows the brain to begin to become wired, and we will begin to see what has always existed, but because we live in those routine automatic programs, we're unable to see because we're processing mind from the familiar. To learn knowledge means we're learning new things, and to learn new things means we're gathering information and creating the circuitry now to begin to develop the sensitivity, to begin to see things for the first time.
You get away from the whole idea of separateness, because separateness is the biggest problem of the world now.
Your consciousness influences others around you. It influences material properties. It influences your future. You are co-creating your future. We are entangled. If you want to call it quantum entanglement, fine, but we are entangled. And there is no real separation between us, so that what we do to another, we do to an aspect of ourselves.
Why do we not see the entanglement? Because evolution has pushed us to not see it. And we get quite good at not seeing it. You know, the sensory input is constructing this image of the world in which the things are separate. But we know through experiments, we know through experience that they're separate, but at some level they're not so separate after all.
We're finding non-locality everywhere, in our bodies, in space, from stars, in regions of the zero-point field. Everything is connected. And so we have this involvement in everything. We are our world. There's no out there. There's no place where we end and everything else begins. We're all connected.
You take this notion of an entangled universe and you apply it to human experience, because human experience is part of the universe as well. And you say, well, let's assume that experience is entangled, then how would it manifest? And we can start going through ways in which it could manifest. If there's a connection with another mind, we call it telepathy. If there's a connection to some other object somewhere else, we'd call it clairvoyance. If there's a connection that happens to transcend time, we'd call it precognition. If there's a connection in which my intention is expressed out in the world some way, we might call it psychokinesis or distant healing or something of that sort. So you can go through a list of perhaps 12 kinds of psychic experience that have gotten labels over the years, like telepathy. But this is really just the tip of the iceberg.
I think entanglement, collapse in one system, inducing collapse in another, is exactly what happens in parapsychological phenomena. And it's also true that time can go backwards, so that they don't even have to be simultaneously. One can occur before or after the other. And near-death experiences, particularly when patients report leaving their body and floating above their bodies, watching themselves being worked on, and then returning to their body, could be due to the fact that consciousness is ultimately a process in fundamental space-time geometry. Consciousness is related to something fundamental.
What's the relation between my God self and your God self? There is no relationship because it's only one God self. It's in both of us.
All people are divine people. Is it not ironic that all would say that this is the voice of the devil or that this is heresy? Have you ever stopped for a moment and looked at yourself through the eyes of the ultimate observer?
One then begins to see others as part of themselves. One begins to see that it's best just to love others and not judge them. That what you do to build another actually builds yourself. You begin to see that you're connected, you're part of a large family.
Love of one's neighbor, I think, is based upon the recognition of neighbor as oneself. Ultimately, of course, when consciousness is developed and education is working, one will perceive other as oneself because we're all one unity. There is only one consciousness, there's only one unified field.
I am much more than I think I am. I can be much more even than that. I can influence my environment, the people. I can influence space itself. I can influence the future. I am responsible for all those things. I and the surround are not separate. They're part of one. I'm connected to it all. I'm not alone.
To acknowledge the quantum self, to acknowledge the place where we really have choice, to acknowledge mind, when that shift of perspective takes place, we say that somebody has been enlightened.
Quantum mechanics allows for the intangible phenomenon of freedom to be woven into human nature.
Quantum physics, very succinctly speaking, is a physics of possibilities. It opens fundamentally the question of whose possibilities and who chooses from these possibilities to give us the actual event of experience.
Welcome to the kingdom of heaven, without judgment, without hate, without testing, without anything. That we simply are has allowed this reality we call real, from the power of intangibility, to pull out of inertness action, chaos, and hold it into its form, and we call it matter. Are all realities existing simultaneously? Is there a possibility that all potentials exist side by side?